it's been talked about for a long time. The issue of independent regulators.
Yeah.
The government in football has introduced a bill. The concept of independent regulator, which we'll have a philosophical discussion about it later, if anybody's still awake, about whether this is something that's necessary. But the idea is there are certain things, like, for example, your electricity supply, right? You can have private companies supplying you electricity, but you still have to have a government entity making sure that the needs of the consumer, I think this is the way to do it. The needs of
respected.
Are respected, right? And this is the thinking behind introducing this independent regulator law. The idea that could there be some independent entity which just listens to the consumers and makes sure that the sport of football is run in line with the interests of the consumer.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lefty idea, let's face it, right? It's not,
Margaret
Thatcher probably wouldn't be in favor of this. But the bill has bipartisan support here in the United Kingdom. The reason we're talking about the United Kingdom is it's the Premier League, right? This is where it's happening. It's Conservatives and Labours and Labour Party members both back it. We've had the draft in terms of the impact it's going to have. I think, and this will still be debated, it'll still change, but the one thing that everybody seems to agree on is they'll have the right to approve or disapprove owners. So in other words, the whole fit and proper persons test. If somebody wants to buy a football club and you don't want to end up like producer Freddie's Reading with Dai Yong and his sister, the regulator will approve this. First of all, are you okay with it? Some people say like, hey, let's let the market handle it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit conflicted. I think football maybe needs some help, certainly in the lower leagues, because you don't want to see what's happening at Reading or Bury or teams like that, clubs that have gone burst or owners that have come with not of the best interest in mind. I understand that. So if it's to look at who's buying a club, making the right test and assessment, let's put it that way, not just when they buy it, but maybe even a year down the line, 2 years, to see if they still have the same motivation, the same money available that they promised.
There's talk of a licensing system.
Yeah, I think the licensing is a good idea. The only issue I have is the Premier League has become the best league in the world without anybody interfering from a government that, by the way, in the last 14 years have done a lot of not so good things. So why would I trust the government, whether they're Tories or Labour, to run football and regulate football in the right way when I see a lot of the other things that they do that is not that great? I'm not sure. So I'm a bit conflicted about it.
That is one of the themes. I mean, I think within football, they just kind of generally agree that they're okay with the licensing. I mean, the Premier League obviously does not want an independent regulator for obvious reasons, right? In theory, the Premier League sits below the FA, the Football Association.
Yeah.
Essentially, so I think it's the Football Association who's saying, hey guys, it should be our job. But the way the Football Association, like most sports federations work, is, I mean, fans don't effectively vote for the people who run football associations, right? You'll have regional bodies, you'll have clubs and stuff like that. It feeds up through the system, and they elect somebody to run your federation in the interest of the sport, but not necessarily the professional sport, not necessarily the consumer.
Exactly.
That's the argument for it. There's also the other big impact here is that, it's an independent committee, but it'll still effectively have ties to politics, right?
Yeah,
so
massively.
This would seem to shut the door on something like the Super League forever for English clubs.
Yeah, which I thought that was already the case with the law that's passed 3 years ago when the Super League or whatever it was happened 2 years ago. So I thought that was already ended. So I don't really buy in the Super League excuse to put that regulator in place. All
right, Jules, this is where we get a little philosophical.
First of all, you think this is necessary? You're happy with this? You think like if it's done the right way, or you don't think that English football needs an independent regulator, somebody interfering in how they run football in this country? I mean, of all the countries that we know and we watch and we work on, it seems to me that England was probably the last one that needed something like that. But I understand then for Reading fans that they cry out for something like that. I get it, and others. But it doesn't look to me that English football is in a bad state or such in a bad state that you need somebody to come in to regulate it.
That's a really good point. is this necessary from that perspective? And I think there is something that makes English football. I mean, they would say it's unique. I don't think it's unique, but it is a little different, which is that they really buy into the pyramid, right? You can go the fifth year of English football, which used to be called the conference, and as I discovered from you, it's now called the National League. If you look at those average attendances, there's clubs that get 10,000 fans a game.
Yeah.
If you were to go, I don't know, what is the fifth tier in France called?
So it's Régional 1.
Okay.
Régional, yeah.
And I'm assuming, I don't know, do you pay to, do you even buy tickets, or do you just show up with your dog and watch pitch side?
No,
right?
you can, it depends. What
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's certainly not on television like it is in the UK.
In Germany, you have the biggest economy in Europe, 84 million people. You have two professional leagues. You have a first Bundesliga and a second Bundesliga, right? After that, it's effectively semi-pro.
Yeah, semi-pro, yeah.
So you have a large mass of fans in the lower leagues who regularly go and attend matches. And I think there's a sense that I think a lot of those people feel disenfranchised.
Right.
And they feel a little disenfranchised because, look, when it works normally, you would have the Football Association, the federation, working with the league to make it work.
Yeah.
I think the Football League has been horrendously run. It's changing now that with Rick Perry in charge, who's got some ideas. But the problem is within the Football League, you have clubs who are tiny, who maybe draw 4,000 or 5,000 a game and have tiny budgets and pay players £500 a week. In League Two, and you've got clubs in the Championship, a lot of times just maybe driven by foreign investors who want to spend money, want to get up in the Premier League, who spend like 130% of their revenue on wages.
Yeah.
And we've seen that.
Yeah.
So bringing those forces together into one sort of coherent way of doing business is really, really difficult. In non-league, we saw it, when Wrexham were promoted, right? They outspent almost everybody else in their division.
Yeah.
They outspent most of the clubs in League Two to get promoted.
Yeah.
So you have all these different forces, and I still think there's a strong ethos. And like, I know our audience is around the world here, right? People listen to us from everywhere. And I often get this on social media and stuff. No, it's all about silverware. It's all about winning things. That's one way to look at it. But I genuinely think there are a ton of people in this country, more so than in other European countries perhaps, who just say, you know what, I support Rotherham. I am never going to get into the Premier League.
Yeah.
I am never going to win the FA Cup. I may get promotion one year, I might go down one year. All I really want is my club to be there. Because every other Saturday, going to the game is part of my ritual.
Yeah.
I go there. Yeah. I went there with my dad, my mom, my grandmother. I want to go there with my kids. I just want the club to be there. I want the club to be normal. Yeah. Right? And they view this almost as a necessity. That's why I made the analogy before, right? Utilities.
Yeah.
You have, which is going to get really boring really quickly for some people, but like I said, you can fast forward. But the idea is, right, the electric company and the gas company and the water company in this country, and in many European countries, are privatized, right?
Yeah.
Those are private entities like football clubs. However, there is a government regulator that says, I think they do the same thing for the railways too, hey, you guys are a necessity. You can't just charge as much as you want.
Yeah.
You have to provide different levels of service. We can't leave this all to a free market because you are a necessity. People depend on you. Businesses depend on you. Just normal people depend on you for daily life, right? And the question is, should football be viewed the same way?
But that's where I don't agree, no. Because those utilities, like you said, don't have a community behind them. There's not this loving relationship between, I don't know who provides you electricity, but you don't love them, right? You don't love that company. Whether you love,
I get my electricity from Utility Warehouse, and I am very happy.
but you don't love them, right? So if the price
I
is too
love
high,
their low prices and excellent service.
if the price go high and you're in time,
No,
to
I
your
change to a
contract-
different one.
Yeah, you change to a
No, no,
different
I know,
one, right?
but they-
Your football club is different.
No,
You've
no,
got a relationship with it.
That's fine. Well, that would be another argument in favor of regulator. But I think
why?
the point I was making wasn't that I can swap one electricity company for the other. The point is the government has a regulator for electricity saying you have to provide this much. You can't make this much profit. There's a cap on how much profit you can make. There's a cap on how much you can charge. We're going to regulate you because this stuff is necessary to our society, right? In the same way that they're arguing football is necessary to these communities, to these societies. And that's why we should have the power to regulate you.
Yeah, true. But then the regulation from an electricity company, which doesn't really care about its customers in the same way that football club care about their fans, which is true, right? Is very similar. That's why I think
I would debate.
Would you trust
having
more?
seen some owners, I don't know how much some owners care about.
Yeah,
the
but that's
fans,
so that's when we go back to the ownership, and that's where I think this regulator would be good, is to avoid a case like Reading, to avoid a case like Bury, to avoid those many cases before even the Sheffield United. To be fair, clubs like that, I understand that completely. But overall, that's what 10% maybe of clubs in this country, maybe 15, okay, maybe 20%. But the other 80% are doing things in the right way with a strong relationship with their fans. They don't need anybody above them to tell them you have to do this and you can't do this and you don't do that and don't come here. And I just don't like interferences anyway in general, and even less for football in a country of football that certainly to me it looks apart from some examples, I look pretty good so far.